Well, you would never know it via mainstream media coverage, but this week begins what could be the final trial in the years-long Trump-Russia collusion probe. Special counsel John Durham is trying to convince a federal jury that the primary subsource behind the now-debunked Steele dossier repeatedly lied to the FBI. But Durham faces an uphill battle in this case. Here to bring us some legal analysis and insight on it is Alan Dershowitz, professor emeritus at Harvard Law School. Professor, always good to see you. All right, so this week's hearing will focus on Russian analyst Igor Danchenko, who was the alleged source behind the Steele dossier. I mean, not only is Danchenko not expected to testify in this, which is interesting, but Durham is also, as I understand it, forbidden from calling other key witnesses like Christopher Steele. Why are these restrictions in place? I mean, how big of an obstacle will that be for Durham?
It will be a big obstacle. The only issue in this case is whether or not he lied to the FBI. Juries don't like lying to the FBI cases. Juries understand, like most Americans, if you raise your hand and swear to God that you'll tell the truth, you have to tell the truth. But when you're sitting and chatting to FBI agents who are lying to you, many Americans and many jurors don't understand why there is a legal obligation punishable by years in prison to fib to the FBI. And the case of lying doesn't look all that strong. It's not black and white. There's a lot of gray in there. So I think this is an uphill case, and it's in Virginia, not in Washington, D.C. Who knows? The outcome is not particularly clear in this case. And it doesn't tell us really the answer to the $24,000 question. I mean, was the Russian dossier a scheme attributable to the Democrats' dirty pool? And we're not getting answers to that. It's an indirect trial of that issue.
So I want to pick up on that for a second, because I think when John Durham was announced and this investigation was announced, for those of us on the right, there was this big expectation. There was this excitement, this idea that, hey, we're going to get to the bottom of what you just mentioned. And then I factor in what Lindsay just said about these legal restrictions that Durham is operating under. How much should we now temper our expectations that this isn't really going to be any kind of an outcome that any of us maybe expected?
Well, first of all, you shouldn't have had those expectations in the beginning, because the criminal justice system is not about satisfying your political expectations, right or left. It's about doing neutral justice. And Durham seems like he's committed to nonpartisan neutral justice, not satisfying Sean Spicer or the Republican Party. And that's his job. And he seems to be doing it quite well. So I think people on the right and the left should be satisfied if he gets to some semblance of the truth. And then you can spin that any way you want politically, but it's not the job of the criminal justice system to help you win political points.
So, Professor, we know that Igor Danchenko was paid by the FBI as an informant between 2017 and 2020. But yesterday, an FBI analyst in court revealed that the Bureau offered $1 million to Christopher Steele back in 2016 if he would corroborate the allegations that he made in this dossier. This feels like a massive revelation. Would you say that it is a bombshell of sorts?
Yes.
Or is this kind of normal?
If a defense attorney ever offered a witness $10, he'd be disbarred and go to jail, and the FBI can offer unlimited amounts of money. They can do more than that. They can offer a person his or her life, but we will execute you unless you testify in a certain way. The deck is heavily stacked in favor of prosecutors, and juries don't like that. When juries hear that the witnesses have been bought or rented, they want to see some corroboration. They don't want to just believe a rented or bought witness.
So, Professor, I want to make a really hard turn here, because there's a case that I read in the news that I was dying to ask you about.
Oh, yeah.
There's a Supreme Court case involving Andy Warhol's use of an old photograph to create a series of paintings about the musician Prince. The photographer of the original image took this picture for a magazine, and then Andy Warhol painted it off of the image, and then the Warhol Foundation made millions of dollars in unpaid licensing fees or royalties, and the judge ruled in favor of the Warhol Foundation. Now, why this is a big deal, obviously, is this has a lot to do with artists and how everything is going to be viewed going forward. It obviously has made its way to the Supreme Court. Give me your take on how this thing goes.
It's a very important case, and it's one of these cases that won't be decided by the typical 6-3 or 5-4 conservative liberal majority, because you don't have to be liberal or conservative. As far as I know, none of the 9 justices know a damn thing about art, and they're not in any position qualified to judge Andy Warhol. You may notice that in back of me, I don't know if you can see it, there is a Warhol. I have a Warhol of Kafka right up there. That obviously was taken from a photograph. My son has a Warhol of the Marx Brothers, again, obviously taken from a photograph. That's Warhol's art. Warhol is a great, great artist who takes people's photographs. Munch did the same thing, and many painters did the same thing. Many musicians, variation on a tune by Haydn. You know, the idea that you're going to make people pay for using their artistic talent to totally transform a piece of art into something very different could really, really stifle creativity. I mean, I feel for the woman who took the picture, and the World Foundation ought to be generous and pay us a couple of $1 million. This case should never have been brought to a court, but it's coming to court, and I think the court should rule in favor of Warhol and against the photographer, and then the Warhols should make a contribution to the photographer.
Okay, well, you heard it here first. Professor Dershowitz, always, now I can go around all weekend and pretend like I do know something about art. And be like, listen, the court's going to rule this way. So this is why I appreciate it. Professor Dershowitz, always appreciate your insight.
My pleasure. Thank you.